Hello again, as you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy over here for EliTheComputerGuy.com and EverymanIT.com. Today's class is removing spyware and malware from a Windows PC with Spybot Search and Destroy. So today we are going to talk about how to remove spyware and malware from a Windows PC, whether it's Windows XP, Windows Vista, Windows 7, etc. Now, if you saw one of my previous courses on cleaning an infection from a PC, you know that when I talk about computers having viruses, I say it is best to simply do a wipe and reload of the system. That is not worth trying to rip a virus out of a PC because you never know whether or not you have really gotten it. Well, something to keep in mind is that spyware and malware are not necessarily the same thing as viruses. So viruses are pieces of software that try to damage your system. So basically this is the software that gets into your system and tries to do damage. It'll do things like it'll disable services, it'll gray out things, it'll just crash your system. Well, spyware and malware does not necessarily damage your system, and most of the best spyware out there intentionally tries not to damage your system. It ends up damaging your system kind of unintentionally, but it is not the purpose of the spyware or malware to damage your system. So you may be wondering why this is. Well, the thing is, with spyware and with malware, these pieces of software are basically simply trying to get your computer to do things you don't necessarily want your computer to do. So with spyware, the classic example of spyware is when you open up Internet Explorer and 20 additional windows pop open. So you click on Internet Explorer, and then as soon as that opens up, 20 other windows open. As soon as you click on anything, 20 other windows open. If you try to go to Google, you go to some sex page, etc. Well, the creator of that spyware, of that malware, does not want to crash your computer. He actually wants your computer to work, but he wants you to do certain things with your computer. So with this type of malware, basically what the creator of it is trying to do, they are trying to get more hits to their website so that they can hopefully get somebody to buy their pornography or whatever it is that they're trying to sell. Why wait for somebody to Google to get to your website if you can just try to force them to go to your website automatically? So with this type of software, you can actually remove it from your system many times relatively easily, and your system will be okay because, again, it's not getting in there. It's not really damaging your system. Basically, it's trying to take over Internet Explorer settings. It's trying to steal some information from you. It's trying to do stuff that you don't want done, but at the same hand, it's not necessarily trying to crash your computer. So a virus gets into your computer, it tries to replicate itself, it tries to crash your computer, it tries to do all kinds of nasty stuff. Spyware is simply trying to get your computer to do stuff that you don't necessarily want it to do. Now, one of the things with this, when you're dealing with viruses and when you're dealing with spyware can be very virus-like, and viruses can have a lot of spyware functionality. So you, as a professional, have to decide when whatever you're dealing with is spyware or if it's a virus. So it sometimes can be a difficult call. Like sometimes, like I say, most of the time with spyware, you'll just get pop-ups. You'll get your Internet Explorer will be redirected to some place you don't want it to go. Basically, it's fairly simple stuff. You'll know how to deal with it. But sometimes, although it does that stuff, it also does other stuff that damages your computer. So whether or not you're going to do a wipe and reload, or whether or not you're just going to try to get rid of the spyware, it's going to have to be your call. So basically, as I tell people, if all you're dealing with is some Internet Explorer redirects, if all you're dealing with is some pop-up ads, if all you're dealing with is some little stuff like that, you can most likely remove that spyware, no problem. 99% of the time, it'll be golden. If you start getting that virus stuff, Task Manager is grayed out, you can't get to your control panel, that kind of stuff starts happening, That's more on the side of virus, and then, like I say, you should do a wipe and reload. If you don't want to do a wipe and reload, you can take my class on cleaning an affected Windows PC, but I would suggest that you do a wipe and reload. So today's class, I'm going to be showing you how to use a piece of software called Spybot Search and Destroy. So Spybot has been around basically about as long as spyware and malware has been around. I've been using it like 6 or 7 years now. The nice part is that Spybot has stayed consistently good. As I talk about with all security software, some years some security software is on top, and other security software is below. So back when I started, Spybot Search and Destroy was the absolute best, and then it was Adware, and then it was like Spy Doctor something or other. And now it's probably like Malwarebytes is one of the best detection. But Spybot always consistently stays in the 1, 2, or 3 spot. It has always been a very good piece of software. So teaching you guys a class today, it's something that I'm confident in 6 months or a year or 2 years is still going to be good for you to use. One of the reasons I like Spybot too is not only does it detect the spyware and malware, but it also tries to immunize your system to prevent spyware and malware from getting on your computer and causing more problems for you. Also, I like it because it's generally free. As I'll go and I'll show you when we do the demonstration, they have some weird, wonky licensing thing that I don't really understand. But by and large, I'll say that it's free. You can download it for free. You seem to be able to use it for free. The license kind of says it's for free until it kind of doesn't say it's for free. So in my book, legally, I think that's confusing as hell, so I will use it for free. So basically, with Spybot, you get all the functionality seemingly for free, and they make it so convoluted, I don't think they're going to sue you anyway. Where unlike, let's say, with Spy Sweeper or Adware or some of this other software, Malwarebytes, they do have pay-for versions that you have to pay for outright. If you don't pay for it, you have flat out pirated the software, and that's illegal. So today's class is removing spyware and malware from a Windows PC with Spybot Search and Destroy. Again, we're going to show you how to use Search and Destroy to remove the malware, the spyware from a computer. Again, spyware and malware generally can be removed from a computer. All hunky-dory, all good, 99% of the time, everybody's happy. Spyware and malware is not the same as viruses. You're going to have to make the call, and when you're sitting down on a computer, do you think it's a virus? Do you think it's spyware? So before we use Spybot Search and Destroy to remove the spyware and malware from your computer, we're going to have to do a couple of prerequisite steps. This is basically the same as whenever you sit down to a computer. So whenever I'm talking about computer repair, I'm probably going to basically tell you to do all of these same steps. The first thing that you're going to do is a simple PC tune-up. So we had a 30-minute class on a PC tune-up. If you don't know how to do it, go take a look at the class. What we want to do with this PC tune-up is we want to clean out all the temporary files. So temporary files are the files that are created by your operating system just in due course. It's just files that are created so that your computer can do stuff. A lot of times computers can amass quite a few of these temporary files. Sometimes a gig, sometimes up to 50 some odd gigs I've seen on one client. The thing is, when you run your spyware scans, these scans are going to scan everything in your computer. So why do you want it to scan temporary files that are basically garbage? It's just gonna waste time. It's just gonna take a lot of time. So you might as well just delete those before you even start messing with Spybot Search and Destroy. You then need to uninstall Crapware. So within the spyware context, what I mean by Crapware is get rid of all of the toolbars. So you're going to go in, you're going to open up uninstall programs on the Windows PC, and Comcast toolbar, Verizon toolbar, Yahoo toolbar, Google toolbar, Freezebox toolbar, BearShare toolbar, God knows how many toolbars. Basically, almost every single piece of free software out there, when you install it, it asks you if you want to also install their toolbar. Well, those toolbars, they're not really spyware, they're just what we call malware. basically those toolbars can cause problems when you use Internet Explorer to go out and go to the web. Again, they can do Internet Explorer redirects, they can just cause you problems. So what you're going to do after you clean out your temporary files is you're going to go in and you're going to uninstall all of those toolbars, because since those are actually applications that are installed on your computer, Spybot may or may not remove them. It may not detect them. But I'm telling you, all of those toolbars are horrible and evil and nasty. Maybe Google's okay. Maybe. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to disable unnecessary startup items. So go in and again, any pieces of software that you don't recognize, disable them, because they may be malware. They may be spyware that'll be causing you problems. The next thing is you want to make sure that you have antivirus installed on your computer. Now, as I talked about before, viruses and spyware, malware are two separate things. And you do need two separate pieces of software to deal with them. I don't know why. It seems stupid. It seems like the antivirus companies would just all put in the antivirus software. But I digress. You do have to have two different pieces of software to deal with them. So you have to have antivirus, you have to have anti-spyware. Well, there's something in the gray area. So as I talked about before, there's a gray area between spyware and viruses. These are normally called PUPs. You will see this on a lot of antivirus scanners. These are called potentially unwanted programs. Antivirus scanners do a very, very good job of getting rid of these PUPs, or potentially unwanted programs. Basically, these are programs that are installed on your computer somehow, you probably didn't do it, that aren't necessarily a virus, but you probably don't want them there. So your antivirus software, if you do a full scan, will normally be able to detect these PUPs and get rid of them. So just run your scanner. If it says you have PUPs, get rid of these potentially unwanted programs because you want them gone. So although we're talking about Spybot Search and Destroy today, you should have antivirus installed on your computer, and you should do a full scan before you do the spyware scan, just to make sure the viruses are gone and the potentially unwanted programs are gone. Because again, those PUPs are vaguely like spyware. And the final thing is make sure that you do the updates to your system. Do all the Microsoft updates. The latest service pack, Internet Explorer, big one. Make sure you're running the latest Internet Explorer for your computer. Internet Explorer is just full, chock full of bugs and problems and vulnerabilities, etc. So as I said before in the cleaning out and infected a Windows PC class, simply by updating all the updates on Microsoft, many times you can eliminate problems. Then also make sure to update your Java, make sure to update Adobe Reader, and make sure to update Adobe Flash. You do those, the Microsoft updates, Adobe updates, and Java updates, and that will solve a lot of the problems with some of this spyware. So these are the preliminary steps. So before we jump in to using Spybot Search and Destroy, we're going to do a basic tune-up, clean out the temporary files, uninstall the Crapware, disable the startup items, make sure antivirus is installed, get rid of those PUPs, potentially unwanted programs, and then do all the updates, all the Windows updates, all the Internet Explorer updates, service packs, Office, Adobe, Java, etc. These are the preliminary things that you need to do before you start doing the spyware scans. So now that we've done the preliminary steps, now we need to dive in and use Spybot Search and Destroy. So again, this is free to download. The licensing seems a little convoluted, but in my book it seems to be free, so we'll go with that. Basically, we're going to go to, I think it's safernetworks.org. We're going to download Spybot Search and Destroy. We're going to install it, and I will show you how to use it. Now, one of the big things is while you're installing Spybot Search and Destroy, you're going to have a lot of options. And, it's really normal to do next. One of the nexts I don't want you to do, I want to make sure that you uncheck the checkbox, is there will be a checkbox for what is called T-Timer. T-Timer is something called a registry guard. Basically, it protects your registry from edits that you may not want to have happen. So some of the spyware, some of the viruses out there will try to modify your registry without you knowing about it. The problem is with all these registry guards, whether it's Spybot, whether it's McAfee, whether it's Norton, is whenever something tries to modify the registry, you're going to get a little pop-up box, and it's going to say something. Basically, it's going to say blah 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 tried to modify gobbledygook. And as somebody with 14 years experience, I can say that's what it says to me. So God knows what it's going to say to you. And the problem is if you say no, if you don't allow one of these registry modifications to happen, you could break a piece of software that you need to function properly. So I would suggest that you do not activate T-Timer when you are installing Spybot Search and Destroy. It is a very, very, very good service if you know how to use it and if you really want to lock down your PC. Most people do enough modifications to their PC though. If they use T-Timer, they're going to end up causing more damage than good. So I would suggest when you're installing Spybot, do not activate the T-Timer. Not only could you break something, but also you're just going to get all these pop-ups all the time. And especially as a technician, it's just going to be a pain in the butt. So you're going to install Spybot, and it's going to be a very simple process. Now, after you've installed Spybot, one of the quirks, and this is a weird quirk, if you're using Windows Vista or if you're using Windows 7, if you're going to run Spybot, what you want to do is you're going to have an icon on your desktop. You want to right-click that icon and do Run as Administrator. The reason you want to do this is if you don't do Run as Administrator, you don't get all the functionality of Spybot, and it only kind of like half works, half the time. It's just really weird and it's really bad. So just make sure when you're going to be running Spybot Search and Destroy, on the icon you do right-click and then you do Run as Administrator. That'll make your life good. When you run it the first time, you're going to have the ability to update the software, so you always update the DAT files for the software. You may be asked whether or not you want to back up your registry before you make changes. I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're really anal and you want to back up your registry, that would be an okay idea. I can tell you I've been a consultant since 03, since I've been using it since 03. I've never backed up the registry and it's never caused me a problem, so me personally, I wouldn't worry about it. But basically, so you're gonna update the software. You're going to say no to backing up the registries, I would say. Then the first thing you're going to do after you get done with this is you want to immunize the system. So immunizing the system tries to lock down holes in the Windows operating system that may allow malware or spyware to do stuff that you don't want malware and spyware to do. One of the good examples Spybot does is it goes into your hosts file. So we talked about the host file back in the hacking DNS. Host file maps IP addresses to domain names. So within the host file, you can say cnn.com goes to 258.66.144.55. Well, this is one of the ways that spyware or malware redirects your operating system. When you try to go to Google or Facebook, it many times will hack your host file and modify where Facebook or Google or Yahoo or any of that goes. So instead of going to the Google web server, you go to the XXX porn web server. So that's one of the things that Spybot is going to do, is it's going to go in, it's going to modify your host file so that instead of going to these bad websites, you actually get redirected to yourself. You get redirected to 127.0.0.1. I will show you that. And then it locks the host file so that no other applications can mess with it. This is a very big thing. The host file, back with Windows XP, pre-service pack 2, this was the big attack vector for this malware and this spyware. It would go in, it would modify the host file, just like I talked about in that hacking DNS class. And then again, like I say, instead of going to facebook.com, you will go to sitonmyface.com. Instead of going to yahoo.com, you go to yippiesex.com, etc. Basically, this was all done through the host file, and I'll show you that when we do the demonstration. And then after you do the immunization, then you're going to go in and then you are going to scan your system for spyware. And this is basically just a stock standard scan, like you do with anything, antivirus or whatever. So you just basically hit scan and it will scan your whole system. It will find whatever infections are there and then it will try to remove it. Now with Spybot, sometimes it will find spyware or malware that it cannot remove right at this second because the service is already running. So many times if a piece of spyware is already running in the background, it cannot be shut off or deleted at this time while the computer is booted. So Spybot may give you the option, it may say, please reboot your system so that it can do a full scan before the service has started and it won't be able to uninstall the spyware. Just remember with this that when you reboot the system, it is not going to simply delete what it has already found. It is going to do another full scan. So if it took an hour to do a scan the first time, when you reboot, it is going to take you another hour. So this can be a time-consuming process. So basically, that's what there is for Spybot Search and Destroy. We're going to go on the computer. I'm going to show you how this works. Again, it is very simple. Again, I like Spybot because, you know, year after year, it has been a very good product, and yeah, it's a pretty good thing. So let's go on the computer, and I'll show you how this works. So here we are on my Windows 7 computer. We have Chrome opened, and I'm on Google. I just did a Google search for Spybot, and the first thing that comes up is the home of Spybot SND, Search and Destroy. So the website we're going to be going to is www.safer-networking.org. All we do is click on this. So Spybot Search and Destroy, they have a few different products. So they have Spybot Search and Destroy, the bootable CD, Runalyzer, Filealizer, Regularizer. We'll probably do different classes on those. But what we want today is Spybot Search and Destroy. So we're going to click on here. Basically, it's going to give you all the information about what it is, and then we're going to download Spybot Search and Destroy from this product link here. Now, one thing that I'm going to show you is if you keep scrolling down, scroll down all the way down, you have some related links. So since we are professionals, remember, professionals need to worry about more than TCP/IP and spyware and all that. We need to worry about things like licenses. So under here, under license agreement, I'm going to show you how convoluted this thing is. So it does say freeware. First of all, the reasons why Spybot Search and Destroy is free. It's dedicated to a wonderful girl, blah, 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 blah. This all sounds very, 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 very good until you get down to section 2E. It says corporate use. As companies are not individual persons and would have problems fulfilling the above terms, there's a license for corporate users. Well, if you actually read these terms, I have no idea why a corporation couldn't deal with these terms. Doesn't make any sense. So then if you click here, then it comes over and there are some weird business editions that I'm really not sure what you're supposed to buy. So there's a bootable CD you can buy for 39 bucks. There's a small business edition that's like $99 plus $13 per node. There's a service edition, 1 technician, 1 year is $129. And this is all for a product that over here it says is free. So this is something that you should look at. Remember, any software that you're going to be using, you need to take a look at the license and figure out whether or not you can use it. Or, like I say with Spybot, whether or not the licensing seems so damn convoluted that you can't imagine anybody could sue you anyway. Like I say, if you read this, I really don't understand what they're talking about. But anyways, that's the licensing there. So we're going to go back, and then we will scroll up, and then all you do is you click on the link to download Spybot Search and Destroy. And then, you know, you have different mirrors here. So we'll just go to File Forum, Download, and then we do Download Spybot Search and Destroy. And we do Keep. And so this isn't too big. So with me, I have Comcast cable internet, so it's pretty quick, but it's about a 15.6 meg file. So if you have Comcast, it'll take you that quick, and if you have DSL, it'll take you 10 times as long. So all we're going to do, though, is we're going to double click on this, and then we're going to run. This is just a standard installer, yes. And then we do English. And then we do next, and then we do accept the agreement next. Where are you going to install it? You know, next. All this stuff, icons for blind user mode. I guess if you care, explore files, some of this stuff. Yeah, just leave it. Next. folder, next. Okay, here's where you're not going to click next. You're just going to hold off for a second. Give it 1 second. Now, here's the checkboxes. So create a desktop icon, leave that. Create a quick launch icon. If you want to leave that, leave that. Use Internet Explorer Protection, SD Helper. You want to leave this checked. This is very good. It protects Internet Explorer from the holes that Microsoft leaves there. What I say you should uncheck is use System Settings Protection, T-Timer. Uncheck that. Again, it's technically a good product, but at the end of the day, it's a pain in the butt. And then all we do is we click Next, and then we do Install. And then install is pretty quick. And that's it. See how quick that is? So then all we do is we do finish. And then we do yes. Okay, now here it's going to say, do you want to create a registry backup? You're going to say no. Next. Okay, so we're going to start using the program. Sometimes it asks you for updates, and well, other times it doesn't for some reason. And this is the screen that you're going to be using for Spybot. Basically, it's pretty simple. You have the check for problems, you have search for updates, and you have immunize. So what we're going to do is we're just going to search for updates right now. We're going to do yes. We're going to do continue. And we do download. It's going to download all these updates. Just like everything else in the world, there's a million updates. And remember, for security software, new vulnerabilities come out like every couple of minutes. So whenever you run Spybot, you always want to do an update. Like literally, if you run it in the morning and it's the evening, do the updates again, just to make sure that you've got everything. Now, close and cancel. Now what we're going to do is we are going to take the icon. So this is the icon for Spybot Search and Destroy that is on your desktop. Now what you want to do when you're going to be running Spybot is you right click, and as I say, you do this run as administrator. If you do not run Spybot Search and Destroy as an administrator, it is going to cause problems. I'm going to tell you, it's going to cause problems. So with the icon, make sure to right click and then do run as administrator. And of course it's going to give you this warning, and you're going to say yes. And then it's going to open up. Now the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to immunize a system. So we click on the immunize button. It's going to search and it's going to look for vulnerabilities. So what we're going to do is we're going to check again. So this is where we check to see what the vulnerabilities are. We're going to see that we have currently 80,000 vulnerabilities protected and 104,000 unprotected. All you do is you leave all these things checked and then you just hit the immunize button. So this will automatically fix all those problems and protect all the issues that you might have on your computer. This can take a couple of minutes. Generally it's not too bad. It usually takes, I don't know, somewhere under 3 minutes to do. And so Spybot has immunized the system now. So basically we just checked for the system, then we clicked the immunize, and then it finished. So this total thing, we did a little time lapse here, but this little thing took about 5 minutes to do. So now all these holes have been protected within Windows and Internet Explorer. So things like cookies and domains and all of that kind of stuff. Now, as I said before, one of the really interesting things with the immunization is it modifies your hosts file. So the host file is used in DNS, domain name services resolution. So if we want to look at the host file, we go to C, we go to Windows, we go to System32, we go to drivers, we go to etc, and then we go to the hosts file. We can right click this and we can do edit it. And what you will see is within the host file, Spybot has inserted domain names to point back to 127.0.0.1. So 127.0.0.1 is something called the loopback address. This is the IP address of the network adapter on your computer all the time. You use this for troubleshooting. So if you want to see if your network adapter is working, you can do 127.0.0.1. Or if you're running a web server on your computer, you can type in 127.0.0.1 and that will send you to the web server that's actually running on your computer. Now, what Spybot has done is it has redirected all of these really bad domain names just so it goes back to your computer. Essentially what this does is it kills the connection. So if for some reason you try to go to firstpagehere.com, it'll just send you straight back to your computer and nothing else will happen. This is used so that the spyware does not try to phone home and infect your computer with other stuff. So if pop-ups are trying to show up, etc., this will try to stop that from happening. So this is one of the protections that Spybot does to try to protect your system from being infected by other stuff. So 100sexlinks.com just gets redirected, so you won't be able to go to the website 100sexlinks.com anymore. So that's what's done. One of the things that's done for the immunization, and it does a few other things again to try to prevent your computer from being infected. Once you're done with this, then all you do is you go up to this icon for search and destroy, and then you're going to check for problems. Now I'm going to check for problems and I'm going to show you how this works. But when you do this, this can take a while. We will use time delay or whatever, but this can take up to an hour to scan for a computer. So just something for you to keep in mind. But all you're going to do then is you're just going to do check for problems. And basically you're just going to wait for it to finish a scan. So down here you'll see it's running the bot check, and then this is the progress bar at the bottom of the screen. And now all we do is run and wait for things to start popping up. So now the scan has finished. I think that took me about 15 minutes total, so not too bad. And as you can see, it has found problems on my computer. So it'll show you what the problems are. Let's see, tracking cookies, tracking cookie. That's interesting. That's a registry setting right there. HT users, tracking cookie, tracking cookie. Okay, so I got a lot of tracking cookies on my system. That's no big deal. But basically, unless you know what you're doing, you just leave these check marks checked. And all you're going to do is you're going to say fix selected problems. So you click on this fix selected problems. Do you want to remove these entries? Yes. And fixed. Okay. So that's all there is to running the scan. Like I say, I doubt you understand what any of this says anyway, so don't uncheck it. And that's what there is for Spybot Search and Destroy. So we installed Spybot. I showed you a little bit about the licensing. When you're installing it, again, I would suggest you don't use T-Timer, but that's kind of up to you. When you start it up, remember to do right-click and then do Run as Administrator. If you don't do that, it's going to have problems. Then you're going to immunize the system, and then you're just going to run the scan. Now you will notice that I have some settings here. There's a different mode. So the default mode that you probably see when you install Spybot looks like this. There is an advanced mode. And it does have other options here. It does have other things that you can play with. I would generally say don't mess with these. It's not that they don't work. I just wouldn't mess with them if I were you. Everybody does certain things very well. The thing that Spybot does very well is the immunize and the removing the spyware part. So with that, let's go back out to the real world and have some final thoughts. So that's all there is to using Spybot Search and Destroy to remove the malware and spyware from your computer. I showed you it's a pretty simple piece of software. There are some more advanced options in there. I don't know, whether or not you use them, that's up to you. Personally, I find with those other advanced options, it's just better to use other pieces of software, but they are there. You can play with it. So basically, this whole process of removing spyware and malware from your computer, what you're going to do is first, you're going to do a basic tune-up of your computer using something like CC Cleaner. So you're going to clean out the temporary files, you're going to uninstall the crapware, the toolbars, etc. You're going to disable startup items. Make sure that antivirus is installed. Although we're dealing dealing with spyware, you can also have viruses. Not only that, but the antivirus software can detect PUPs, potentially unwanted programs. These are almost always unwanted programs, so you just want to be able to get rid of them. Then you're going to make sure you install all the updates. The big one is that you have all the updates for Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer is the main weakness on your computer for all the spyware and malware. So by simply updating it to the latest updates, IE 9 currently or IE 8 on Windows XP, this can solve a lot of problems. Beyond that, you want to make sure you get the latest Adobe Reader, Adobe Flash, and Java. These are also other weaknesses that malware and spyware can try to get in there and mess with your system. When you go to download Spybot Search and Destroy, you can just do a Google, download it. Remember I showed you the hinkiness with the license. I'm going to do, it seems to say that it's free, so I'm going to say that it's free. I've used it for free for years. I hope that's a good thing, but you get the full access to it for free. Basically, you're going to download it, you're going to install it. Again, when you install, I would highly suggest that you do not use T-Timer. I've done it with T-Timer, I've done it without T-Timer. T-Timer is a flippin' pain in the ass. Especially if you're doing this for clients. Remember, when a client gives you a computer, they want back a functioning thing they don't have to think about. They don't want to have to deal with pop-ups and all that kind of stuff. The more pop-ups and the more stuff that is going on, the more problems they're going to have, the more phone calls you're going to get for them, and the more miserable everybody is going to be. I'm not saying T-Timer is not a fine product. I just think it is completely more trouble than it's worth. It's just, so I would say do not use T-Timer. So you're going to install it, you're going to run the updates, make sure you're updated with the latest updates, just like anything else. It's going to ask you if you want to back up the registry. You can. I guess the technical thing to say is that you should. I never do, and it has never caused me a problem. Once you do that, then you're going to immunize the system. So immunizing the system, as I showed you, it goes in, it changes the host file, it locks the host file, it does some other stuff just basically to protect your system, and then you are going to scan for spyware, which is pretty simple. You just hit scan, and then you hit fix, and then it's all good to go. The one quirk with Spybot Search and Destroy, remember to right-click and do Run as Administrator when you start up Spybot. If you do not do this, like I say, it kind of half fails. It's not that it doesn't work. It just doesn't quite work perfectly, work good. So just when you're going to run Spybot Search and Destroy with Windows 7 or Vista, make sure to right click and do Run as Administrator. Yeah, and that'll make it work properly for you. Now this should get rid of the spyware, this should get rid of the malware. If you are certain all you have is spyware and malware in your computer, you don't think it's a virus infection, and this doesn't get rid of it, you can use other anti-malware, other anti-spyware software now. Things such as Combo Fix, Malwarebytes, etc. Remember, with virus software, antivirus software, you never want to use more than one antivirus software on your computer at one time. Remember, antivirus software is like condoms. One is good, any more than one, and everything just gets disgusting and horrible really quick. Now with anti-spyware software or anti-malware software, you can have multiple pieces of software on your computer. So you could install Malwarebytes and Spybot Search and Destroy and Combo Fix and Adware and Spyware Doctor, whatever the hell you want, to try to clean out the spyware. Sometimes, if you want to go to the trouble, this is worth it. Most of these scans are rather quick, most of these scans are rather painless, and usually they have at least trial software, so you get to use it for free. The one thing that I would suggest, though, is once you get done with all those plethora of scans, uninstall everything other than Spybot Search and Destroy. Remember, all these pieces of software are making small changes to your operating system. They're doing small things to the Windows operating system. All those small things can wind up creating big problems. The more security software you have on your computer, the more likely it is that you're going to inadvertently create problems on the computer. And again, as far as a client is concerned, they don't care whether it's a hacker or whether it's you. If the computer doesn't work how they want it to work, they're just going to be pissed. So what I would say is use a Spybot Search and Destroy. If that doesn't fix it, Again, Malwarebytes is good, Combo Fix is good, Adaware is good, Spyware Doctor is good. There's like some super Spybot anti something or other that was supposed to be pretty good. You can install these and you can run the scans. I would just say when you get done, uninstall all of those. Just so you don't have any problems. At the end of the day, if you don't want to deal with virus or malware and spyware, the best thing to do is have you or your clients not use Internet Explorer as your primary web browser. Internet Explorer is full of holes and vulnerabilities. The reason for this is because way back in the day, when they came out with Windows 95, they decided that Internet Explorer was going to become part of the Windows operating system. Now understand that web browsers, the way that they were originally envisioned, were simply applications that allowed you to view documents. You could view HTML documents. So the idea way back when is you had like WordPerfect, you had Microsoft Word, you had Star Office. So if you were going to write a paper, if you were going to write a document in WordPerfect, you could only read it in WordPerfect. You couldn't read it in Star Office and you couldn't read it in Microsoft Word. If you created a document in Microsoft Word, same, you couldn't read it in Star Office and you couldn't read it in WordPerfect. So the idea with HTML, the hypertext markup language, was that you could create documents in a single format and have different applications be able to read those documents. So these web browsers, so you could have Internet Explorer, you could have Netscape Navigator, you could have whatever else they came out with, and all of these different web browsers would be able to view the documents. So the World Wide Web is just one massive, insane document. Really, all the World Wide Web is the biggest document that has ever been created as far as mankind is concerned. So when you're using, Firefox or Safari or Chrome, all those web browsers do, basically, is view websites. That's all they do. Well, you see, with Internet Explorer, Microsoft, they tied Internet Explorer into the operating system much more deeply than simply being a document reader. So within Internet Explorer, you have things called ActiveX controls, which are little programs that can run within Internet Explorer and give access to the local resources on the computer. You have FTP control, you have proxy control. You have a bunch of stuff within Internet Explorer that you don't have with Google Chrome or Firefox or Safari. So, with Internet Explorer, you can remotely control other people's computers. You can share files back and forth through Internet Explorer itself. It has all of this functionality. Well, remember, in the computer world, the more functionality something has, conversely, the more vulnerability it has. So because Internet Explorer can do all these wonderful things, it also means there's just a whole mess of vulnerabilities that you can bring onto your computer by using Internet Explorer. This is why I personally use Google Chrome, other people use Firefox, some people like Safari. Why? These other web browsers really only are web browsers. They are used to view documents online. They don't have all this other functionality, i.e. vulnerability. So Internet Explorer allows you to do a lot of cool stuff, but because it allows you to do a lot of that cool stuff, it's just vulnerable as hell and nasty. I only use Internet Explorer when I absolutely have to, and it's for this reason. I can't say enough. I think Internet Explorer is an amazing piece of software. If you really understand how it works, I mean, it is mind-bogglingly cool. The problem is all the hackers out there decide to hack it. So if you don't want to be dealing with malware and spyware, etc., use Firefox, use Chrome, use Safari, or hell, use a Mac. Use a Mac or use Linux. When we're talking about spyware and malware, we really are only talking about Windows PCs. You don't really have this problem with Mac, and you don't really have this problem with Linux. It's all a Windows thing, and beyond being a Windows thing, it's an Internet Explorer thing on Windows, really, at the end of the day. So this was the class on removing spyware and malware from a Windows PC with Spybot Search and Destroy. As you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy, over here for EliTheComputerGuy.com and EverymanIT.com. As always, I enjoy teaching this class, and I look forward to seeing you at the next one.